Hey everyone, so I had a viewer ask me about how to set up a battery, or essentially a battery profile in an iCharger, and in this case it's going to be a DX8, but this interface is shared throughout the DX series, and I think it's the old Duo series. There's like 3 of those chargers, but anyways, this is a pretty common interface for the iChargers, so I'm going to show you how to set up a battery profile. So all you have to do is plug in the battery and then go to the profile and hit whatever function you want to run, charge, discharge, store, whatever. So we're going to use this, looks like a Pulse 3-cell. It's 2250 milliamp hours, so 2250 milliamp hours, and it's 3-cell. That's the one we're going to do today. I'm going to show you how to set it up. Other than that, you really just need to know if it's its cell count and its capacity. So you just change those numbers to whatever happens to be, whatever your battery happens to be, and we're only doing LiPo today. So let's zoom in so you can see what I'm doing. And that looks pretty good. You should be able to see that just fine. So the first thing I'm going to do is, on the dual ones, you want to either pick this one. You either want to pick this side or this side. The easiest way to do it is to hit stop start on one of these to tell it which channel you're going to run. I'm doing this channel on this side. Now you can see I have a bunch of profiles here already. So because I want to make a new one, I'm going to go up to LiPo, which right there has nothing after it. It's basically the template. So I'm going to get into the secret menu. If you can look at what I'm doing, is I'm going to push the center button. Center button, and just hold it, and there you go. And now that secret menu kind of comes up. It took me a while to find it too. Let me zoom back in so make it easier. Now so now here I'm going to scroll down to add, because I want to create a new one. Okay, so now I'm into the programming to set up a new battery. So because I selected LiPo, a LiPo template. If I had scrolled down, you'd see that there's other templates for other battery chemistries, but you can just select here what you want. See, if I click here, I can just do whatever ones I want. So it's not really a big deal. So I'm going to select LiPo right there. I'm going to go down to, I'm going to give it, because I know the cell, this is the most important stuff, because I know the cells, I'm going to do 3S. This is the whole point of all this, putting all this information in. So 3S battery. I'm going to go down here to capacity, and I'm at a weird angle here, so I'm scrolling funny. So 2250. So that's pretty straightforward. And then if I scroll further down, it brings me over here. So these are your functions right here. So it's pretty much, what do you want to do? Charge, store, discharge, cycle, and balance, I think, is down there too. So let's do the most useful one. Let's do charge real fast. So this first one here is just simply your charge current. So I'm going to do, so it's, one thing you have to understand is how fast you charge your batteries. 2C is usually the recommended speed. And what that means is twice the capacity. C is the capacity. So this is 2, so right now that's 2 amps. If I rank that up, go here. 2.2 should be, or actually 2.3, because it's a 2250, is 1C. This is amps, not milliamps, so the decimal moves over. Anyways, so that's 1C right there. You generally want to shoot for 2C. That's a good charge voltage. I say that if it's a decent battery but not super expensive, it's fine to charge your batteries at 2C. If it's a real expensive battery, I would say charge it at 1.5C, or 1.5 times the capacity. So I know other people charge them much faster, but what they're doing is they're gonna reduce the life of the battery over time. And what I mean by that is cycle count, to get as many cycles and as many usages, charges, discharges. You really want to shoot for about, in this case, because it's not a super expensive battery, I'm going for 2C. which in this case is going to be not 4.4, but it's because it's 2250, it's going to be 4.5 amps, and the thing helps you out. It just tells you right there. So so let's click that. We're going to go down. When it turns black, that's when it's going to change. That's when you've selected a field. So I'm going to click this. I say, I'm not going to go into this, but just take this one for me because I want to keep this video a little short. Just do normal balance. Don't do no balance, do normal balance. I guess you could do fast balance if you're in a hurry, but do normal balance. Just take it from me. Now we're going to go over here. And this part isn't really that important. It's just talking about, so there's two phases in charging. There's constant current and then there's constant voltage. This is talking about what the voltage should be subtracted from the maximum voltage of a cell for it to switch to constant voltage. So in this case, because the maximum per cell is 4.2, and it's going to do 0.2 volts under, it would switch over from one phase to the other of the charge cycle at 4 volts. That's all that means. I don't really want to go any further into it because it's just making this video longer. You don't have to go in here. This is all good. This is what I use. Going down here, this is the most controversial one here. So once again, talking about how the charger charges, when it's in that second phase, that constant voltage, it's looking at different things. It's looking at, so the voltage is being locked in, but the current is shifting around. So it wants a certain current and it wants to see the battery being balanced properly. So to do that, you have options here. This is what I select, the last one. The other ones are talking about basically end current or end balance. Either one's just this one, but not that one. I mean, once again, if you select these up here, your charging is going to be quicker because it's doing less checking. But I say if you want to keep your batteries in good condition, you should look for the correct end current and a good balance. So I'm going to tell you, trust me and use the last one. So in the original recording of this video, I missed one of the settings when I was telling you which of the 4 options to select. I forgot to tell you about the percentage next to it. Generally, I just leave it at 10%. Basically, it's looking for the original charge current. When it gets below 10% of that original charge current at the very top, so it's 4.5 amps, and 10% of that, or in this case, looks like it would be it would be 0.45 amps. When it gets below that, it's met that check, and then if you selected what I told you to, then it's also going to look for balance too. Once it detects both of those are in range, then it's going to stop charging, and that's really all that means. I usually set it at either 5 or 10. 5 will give you a little bit more capacity, maybe 10 to 15 seconds of more runtime. But if you leave it at 10, it actually finishes charging quicker. I just leave mine at the default for 10. Last one is the most obvious one. It's asking how much do you want me to charge each cell? And because this is a LiPo, lithium polymer, you want to charge each cell to 4.2 volts and nothing higher. This last thing just means that the function shows up in the list that we were in before. I think I might go into that. I'll show you what that means. It's hard to explain. Okay, this part, you don't have to do anything here. This is about a battery that's been over discharged and how to bring it back. That's maybe I'll do another video on that, but I'm not going to do it here. This has nothing to do with charging. Not even sure why it's actually here. It seems like they just shoved it in here. Safety. I believe this is the charge temp. I'm not sure if this is the battery. I believe this is the internal charger itself. When the charger gets to either 45C or... No, that can't be right. Okay, I'm sorry. That is if you have an external sensor. If the battery gets to 113 degrees Fahrenheit or 45C, it's going to stop the charge because it's getting too hot. As far as these settings, I leave these pretty much as they are. 120, the capacity is fine. And then this last one, you can leave it off. A lot of times I'll set it to 90 because I really don't see any of my charges. Yeah, right there. Once again, I'm at a funny angle. I don't see any of my charges lasting. Usually they last maybe over an hour if I'm charging at 1C from a fully dead battery, but an hour and a half, usually that means something's going wrong. So I just set it to 90 and the rest I just leave as is. Okay, and that looks like that's everything there. So that's the whole charge phase. That's the whole charge function. So what I was talking about with the menu, when you select that show, it means that it shows up here in the programs. So these are each of the functions. And notice how it's changing the name as I'm putting stuff in. Storage, to store a battery. So you're basically going to put it at like a, well, you're going to store each cell at 3.85 volts. That's good. That's perfect for a lithium polymer battery. And that's if the battery is going to be sitting around for weeks without being used. You should run the store function right before you put the battery away. Compensation here, what that means is it overcharges the battery a very small amount so it's going to put it up to 3.86 instead of 3.85, and it's only doing that because it knows when it cuts the current, the voltage to the battery in the store phase, it's actually charging it. It's going to fall back usually, so it's going to just overcompensate. So how much do you want to overcompensate? So if you see it keep like it's not quite hitting that 3.85 after the charger turns off, you may want to bump this up a little bit, but I pretty much just leave it as it is. Accelerated storage, I always leave that on. It does something, it looks at the IR of the battery, and it helps to make better guesses on how it's going to store. So I just leave that on. Once again, show right there just means that it shows up in this function list. If you turn that off, it kind of disappears. So, you know, if you don't want people playing around with the cycle or whatever, you just don't want that in there, you can uncheck that and it disappears. So the next thing we're going to do is discharge, and it's pretty similar to the charge, except we're taking the voltage out. So here, you're going to select how fast you want it to discharge. Keep in mind, I think this one, I think it'll do like 80 watts or something. I'm not 100% sure what it'll do, but this isn't a big discharger all on itself. So you got to be careful what you set this to, because in most cases the battery will be fine, whatever you set this to. 2 amps, that's nothing for the battery, but that could be a lot for the charger itself. The second one here, okay, this is probably, so you're basically just setting how fast it's going to discharge. So let's go down. Now this is probably the most important one. I usually set this to 3.6, at least for flight packs anyway. And that means that when it sees all 4 cells, it's going to try, when it sees, all 3 cells in this case, or however many you have, it's going to try to get them down to 3.6, which is mostly discharged. That's got to be like maybe 2 to 5% of the battery is left. So that's pretty low. So yeah, I don't like it being too low. Do not ever go below 3.2. I think that actually starts damaging the cells. So once they go below 3.2 volts, they actually start getting damaged. So I give it a little slack if I want to discharge a battery and cut it off at 3.6. So that's just what I recommend. I'm not going to go into it anymore. So let me click that, 50%. Well, let me say it like this. So like I said, there's 2 phases to discharge. When the discharge voltage is met at 3.6, it's going to go into the constant voltage, and it's going to look at the current. And when the current gets to 50% of what you put up here, so I guess in this case it's 2 amps, so it would be 1 amp, that's when it's going to discontinue discharging. This last one here, okay, so let me move that down. This is regenerative mode, and this is what I'm talking about. You can actually defer the discharging to various, to various outputs, in this case to channel. So I'll set that, I'll move over here, and then I can come up with, you know, bulbs, and then tell it exactly what the voltage limit and what the current limit is and stuff like that. So basically I'm plugging in light bulbs, resistance, a big resistance load, something like that on channel 2. So it's deferring to another channel. Go back. So to channel, it's obviously only one other channel. I would say generally, if you're not discharging very quickly, leave this off. And then input means that you actually have a regenerative it's basically going right back to the power source. I'll figure out how to say that word later on. Apparently I'm tongue-tied today. So I could go into this in another video because you really have to see how it's all set up. So just at this point, I'm going to say just leave it off. And keep in mind that when you store, it's going to use either the charge or discharge program to make that happen, depending on if it's taking voltage or adding it in. So if it's discharging it, it's going to look for that regenerative channel there. So if something's not plugged into it, it's going to fail and it's not going to do it. So just letting you know. Let me go to advanced real quick. Extra discharge enable, that has something to do with adding a resistor physically to the outside of the charger within the channel. So I'm not going into that. This I would select balance enable, so it's going to balance while it's discharging. Safety, it's the same thing as the other one. How if you have a sensor to the battery, obviously if you don't, none of this is that's not gonna matter. I usually set the capacity to, for this one, I set it to 90 so it can't over discharge the batteries. And I'm pretty sure that's what was there when that was what was there. I didn't put that in. So that's, just leave that as is. And then once again, I do usually set it to 90 minutes because I feel like anything over 90 minutes, something's not right. That, go back, and that's everything for discharging. Now, the next two ones are pretty quick. Back, cycle, I'm not gonna do that for this video. Balance, there's not much here. Do you wanna see it or do you not wanna see it? In the program menu, I'll go here and just show you, if I turn this off, it kind of does this. So now there's like a check there, and I believe when I go into the actual program, not this setup menu, but cycle will not be an option. So it just kind of removes it, makes it easier. And I think that's about it. Option, okay, so I'm just telling it that this, for this profile, I'm going to do it asynchronous, so I'm not combining the two channels in any way, shape, or form. Auto save before the program runs. Okay, so you might see something that says save and don't save. What that means is I leave this off and I can make changes to the program right before I'm about to run it. I can run it and those changes don't get saved for next time. So I can just make changes on the fly and they don't affect my profile. Otherwise, if you select this, every time you make a change, it's going to update the profile. And you might see something that says didn't save or don't save or save, auto save on the bottom. It's just telling you what it's doing. Run counter is just a counter for your specific battery pack. So if, let's say, I just got this charger and I have this battery and I have 20 cycles, then I would put 20 in here to just tell it this battery's been used or cycled, discharged, and recharged 20 times. If you're logging to an SD card, you're just telling it how many seconds you want it to send information to. I just leave it as is, and if, once again, if you want to send this to your SD card, then check it, and if you don't, then uncheck it. But I'm just going to let it go. It's fine. It's a huge SD card. If you're worried about it getting filled up or something, then yeah, I would uncheck that. And that's it. Then you're going to hit save. One other thing is you can change the name if you want to. Go up, up. Oh, I missed it. You just go in there and then you can change the name. And you have to sit there and play with it. You basically scroll around and it changes the characters one by one, and it's super annoying to do. So now you're going to hit save, and now it's there. And note it, and see this 20 right there? That means that that battery's had 20 cycles on it. Like if you look at this one, it's had 21. That one's only had 11. Stuff like that. That's really all it means. And that's about it. So if you have any questions, leave comments down below. Other than that, that's how you set up a battery for pretty much this type of interface for the this very popular interface style for an iCharger. All right, thanks. Bye.